Hey, so today we're going to take a look at a second sonnet, Sonnet 130 by William Shakespeare. This one is often referred to as the anti-sonnet because it is, if only I could spell, A-N-T-I, because it's opposite of almost all sonnet tropes, and Shakespeare's certainly trying to make fun of his own genre here in a potent way. So we're gonna first ensure that it's a sonnet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 lines. Does it have an intricate rhyme scheme? A, sun. Red. B, done. Goes with sun. Oops, I think I'm going to actually have to push these out one more layer because that line is long coming up down at the bottom. Head is going to go with red. That's a B. White is brand new. That's a C. Cheeks is brand new. That's a D. Delight goes with white. Reeks goes with cheeks. No, that's new. Sound is new. Go is no. Ground is sound. Rare and compare are going to be brand new as well. So we have a traditional Shakespearean sonnet. We can look and make sure that this works, but your first quatrain, your first period is right here. Your second quatrain ends at a period, so it should be a continuous thought. Your third quatrain ends at a period again, and then we have this resolution couplet down here at the end. So that all works. Do we have iambic pentameter? My mistress' eyes are nothing like the sun. 10. Coral is far more red than her lips red. 10. If snow be white, why then her breasts are done. Can you hear the rhythm? It's 10. So it's definitely a sonnet. It fits all of the sonnet rules. However, let's read it from beginning to end and then go through and make some sense of it. My mistress' eyes are nothing like the sun. Coral is far more red than her lips red. If snow be white, why then her breasts are done. If hairs be wires, black wires grow on her head. I have seen roses damasked, red and white, but no such roses see I in her cheeks. And in some perfumes is there more delight than in the breath that from my mistress reeks. I love to hear her speak. Yet well I know that music has a farming sound. I grant I never saw a goddess go. My mistress, when she walks, treads on the ground. And yet, by heaven, I think my love is rare, as any she belied with faults compare. Okay, so you can see just from a single read, I think, how this flies in the face of the rules and subjects of sonnets that came before. I mean, let's just look at the first quatrain. My mistress. All right. Well, this word's important. Mistress. A mistress is somebody that you're in a physical relationship with outside of wedlock. This is not addressed to some perfect, idealized lady. Like Dante and Petrarch and Sidney were all writing to a woman they didn't have. This idealized perfect beauty. Shakespeare's like, yeah, well, I'm writing to my mistress. So instead of being about this idealized perfect beauty, it's about his side chick, right? Like that's different. And it's definitely a girl that he's with, but generally we don't think about love. Love is this pure thing that's resigned for marriage. But this is a mistress. So my mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun. So we have a simile here, but it's an interesting simile because it's used in a reverse way. Most sonnet writers would say, "Oh, the lady I love, her eyes sparkle like the sun. They shine like," and he's like, nah, they're kind of dull. They're not like the sun at all. They're nothing like the sun. He goes on, coral is far more red than her lips red. So again, a sonnet writer would be like, her lips are like cherries or rubies or coral or whatever. And Shakespeare's like, nah, her lips are kind of blotchy. She needs some chapstick, Then, if snow be white, why then her breasts are done. All right, this word done is not a color that we use very much anymore, but it's the color of smoke, sort of a gray color. So, if snow is white, then her breasts are done. Well, most sonnet writers, remember we were dealing with a European Renaissance European quality of beauty, which was the paler your skin, the more beautiful you were. And so most sonnet writers are like, her skin is as white as snow. It looks like snow on the mountainside. And Shakespeare's like, no, her skin's kind of gray. So we have that. But hey, we also have color symbolism here. Snow and white, I should say, white itself is the color of purity, right? And so to have his mistress not be the color of purity says something about the fact that she's a mistress. There's that connection. Also, sonnet writers tend to write about skin. Shakespeare's like, her breasts are done. So he's picking a very sexual, physical representation and then showing you a color that does not represent purity. And so there's that. Then he says, if hairs be wires, there's another sort of metaphor. If hairs were wires, black wires grow on her head. Now, again, most sonnet writers talked about hair as soft and silky. Blonde was the color of choice, I guess, in Northern European standards of beauty of the time. And this woman has black wires, so she's got kinky, curly black hair coming off her head. So he says, if hairs are wires, black wires grow off her head. So she is not the European standard of beauty. She's got dark skin. She's got curly black hair. She's got blotchy lips, and her eyes are not blue and shining like the sun. So there's that. He goes on, and that's not what a normal sonnet writer would write, right? So if I'm the girl who's having this written about me, I'm not super thrilled about having a poem written about me at this point. And it gets worse from there. Second quatrain. He says, I have seen roses damasked red and white, but no such roses see I in her cheeks. So again, sonnet writers would talk about the rosy blush in her cheek. They'd be like, oh, the rosy blush in her cheek is like the shadow of a rose on a mirror of silver, right? And Shakespeare's like, yeah, I've seen all kinds of roses, all different colors, but there aren't any roses in her cheeks. They're kind of drab. And in some perfumes is there more delight than in the breath that from my mistress reeks. Look at that word, reeks. He's like, yeah, and sonnet writers are like, oh, her breath smells like perfume. I could smell it all day. And Shakespeare's like, no, her breath stinks. Morning breath is morning breath. Doesn't matter who it's coming from. So he's very real and sort of harsh in all of these. She's got stinky breath. She's nothing special to look at, so far. In fact, most of the terminology has sort of been derogatory by Northern European beauty standards of the time period. The first sort of nice thing he says is here. He says, I love to hear her speak. That sounds nice. He likes to listen to her. They enjoy conversations together. Yet, here it is. Well, I know that music has a far more pleasing sound. Again, sonnet writers of the day would be like, her voice is like birds singing or a choir of angels. And Shakespeare's like, no, her voice is kind of ugly. Music is much more pleasant than her voice. She's like, what's the matter? She's had like 16 cigarettes or something. No, I'm just exaggerating. But seriously, he's saying her voice does not sound nice. He loves to listen to it. He enjoys their conversations. But, right, then he says, I grant I never saw a goddess go. My mistress, when she walks, treads on the ground. So traditional sonnet writers would be like, she floats on air. She's so graceful. Her feet don't touch the ground when she's walking. And he's like, yeah, when she walks, you know it. Thump, thump, thump. Sometimes she steps in poop. Like these things happen, right? So Shakespeare is, again, being super real. So in our first three quatrains here, it's a pretty insulting and difficult poem to see as a love sonnet. It's directed to a mistress. It focuses on all of her flaws, all of her negative attributes. There's very, very little in here that is sort of love. And remember that traditional sonnets were unrequited love poems, and this is the opposite of unrequited love. You generally don't love a mistress, but you have her physically, as opposed to a traditional sonnet where you love the person, but you never have her physically. So this is indeed the opposite. So far, pretty harsh poem. But, Shakespeare likes to sucker punch you with that resolution couplet at the end, and he does that here. He says, and yet, by heaven, he swears by heaven above, I think my love as rare as any she belied. Belied means lies about with false compare. And so he's calling out all the other sonnet writers. He's like, yep, I'm going to tell you what my mistress really looks like. I'm going to be completely honest. And then at the end, I'm going to declare that I love her. And it's not like she's ugly, but I love her anyway. That's not what he's saying here. There's no but. He says, this is what she looks like, and I love her. It's an and, it's not a but. And I think that's really important that you interpret and understand that. He says, I don't need to make fake claims about the girl I love to be in love with her. I'll tell you what she's really like, and then I'll tell you I love her. I love her for the flaws, not despite the flaws, for them. And I think that this is a really profound, really powerful message that Shakespeare pulls out at the end of this thing, because he's calling out sonnet writers. He's like, yo, sonnet writers, if you need to make believe that the woman you love is absolutely perfect, then you don't know her. You're not really in love with her. You're in love with an idea of perfection that may or may not exist. If you need to airbrush the flaws of the person you're with and not recognize them for who they are, then you're not in love with them. You're in love with some idealized version of them that doesn't exist, and so your love is fake. That's great stuff. I don't need to lie about her, he says. I'll tell you who she is, and I love her. I mean, that's good stuff. And I think it's especially important. Let me moralize for a second. Sorry. I think it's especially important now. And maybe one of the reasons why Shakespeare's so real. But this sonnet, and they all fit together, by the way. I mean, like, you go back, you look at 29 and the message of 29, that love, true love, is the most important thing in the world. It's more important than a kingdom. It's more valuable than anything else. You go to 116, where he tells you that love never changes or asks for change, and it doesn't matter what happens, it will overcome all obstacles. And then you come here, and he says you don't need to lie to yourself about who you're with. If you lie to yourself, you don't love them. You love the lies you tell yourself. If you can look at them for who they are and love them anyway, that's true love. This is powerful stuff. And in today's world, with everything touched up and airbrushed and filtered, and all of the fake on social media all the time, I think this is a even more important message than ever before. We have this idealized version of physical perfection that is not realistic. We have this idea that everybody's life is going to be perfect, or that we can represent this perfection to the world, but we see other people's representations of their perfection, and we don't recognize them as sort of the facade or the show or the pageant that they are put on for other people's benefits, and that everybody has struggles and difficulties and nobody's perfect. And Shakespeare says we need to see, recognize, accept, and come to even love the imperfections of other people if we want to have meaningful and lasting relationships. And like, this goes back to Gawain a little bit, but the idea that I think Shakespeare is getting across here is that if you can't respect and come to love the flaws of the person you're with, then you're not. It's maybe more important to know, understand, and appreciate those things than it is to appreciate the good things. It's easy to appreciate the good things. It's hard to appreciate the bad things. And if you can find somebody that you've come to terms with those things about, then you have true love. You have a lasting and meaningful relationship, and that's some powerful stuff. So when I say Shakespeare seems like a more mature poet, I'm talking about his content. I'm talking about his philosophies. I'm talking about his views on life, the things that come across in his poems, like this one. The poem is kind of funny, from beginning to end. It's insulting and funny, but the message is so powerful. All right, let me read it to you one more time, and then I'm going to pause the video and try and do the sound devices and stuff. But you'll see that this poem is essentially not frilly. There's not a lot of bells and whistles here, and I think he does that on purpose. It's an anti-sonnet. It's meant to hit you. And anyway, my mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun. Coral is far more red than her lips red. If snow be white, why then her breasts are done. If hairs be wires, black wires grow on her head. I have seen roses damasked red and white, but no such roses see I in her cheeks. And in some perfumes is there more delight than in the breath that from my mistress reeks. I love to hear her speak. Yet well I know that music has a far more pleasing sound. I grant I never saw a goddess go. My mistress, when she walks, treads on the ground. And yet, by heaven, I think my love is rare, as any she belied with faults compare. So it starts out with some pretty good sound devices, but they get fewer and fewer as we go on, and I don't see any in the final couplet. My mistress, we have the M alliteration. My mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun. We have my, I, and Ike and Ike, so we got assonance there, and mistress and I is both end with an S sound. So the first line's got some good sound devices. Far and more and her is all consonants. Her and R is consonants in the next line. Hairs and wires are is consonants. Her and head is alliteration. Roses and cheeks, damasked, red, and are all consonants. Roses ends with an S sound, so does cheeks. And C and cheeks both have the same vowel sound. Perfumes is there, more, than, in, the, that, my mistress reeks. So there's stuff going on, but then all of a sudden it sort of falls off. I love to hear her, or we got the H's and the R's in these two. And then we've got far more, there's an R sound there. Goddess go, I guess with grant too. We have alliteration. My mistress, that's alliteration. Walks, treads, and mistress, that's consonants. And then I can't find anything in these last two lines. So we've got all of that stuff going on. I forgot the sound devices. I wanted to sneak those in there. Hey, this week you owe me a literary reaction paper. And I would ask that you write it on one of the sonnets that we've read. We've read a number of sonnets in class. You can write about any one of those that you want. This one is a great option. But just to recap, we've read Edmund Spenser's Sonnet 35 about fire and ice, his Sonnet 75 about two people walking on the beach. We looked at Sir Philip Sidney's Thou Blind Man's Mark, and Sonnet 39 about sleep. We looked at Shakespeare's Sonnet 29, which was one of his early sonnets about how love is more valuable than a kingdom. We looked at 116 today, which is his sonnet defining true love, and we looked at 130, which is sort of his anti-sonnet about his mistress. So you can pick any one of those that you want to write about. You could also write your reaction about one author if you wanted to keep you want to write about all of Shakespeare's sonnets or all of Spenser's sonnets or all of Sidney's sonnets, that would work as well. But there has to be some continuity in what you're doing. You could also write a paper that contrasts, Shakespeare's themes with either Spenser's or Sidney's or poetic styles or something like that. But whatever the case, don't forget to write that this weekend, and I will see you guys later. Thanks.